Okay, as we delve deeper and deeper into mathematics, it's important that we are all talking in the same language when it comes to mathematics. So it's important that we spend some time talking about some basic terminology involved with algebraic expressions. So let's take a look at a couple of examples, and we will talk about the definitions within there. So we're starting off just with the concept of what's called an algebraic expression, and essentially what we're doing is mathematically uniting, if you will, variables and numbers. And we do that mathematically through basic operations. So let's talk about the expression that we see here. This is called an algebraic expression, negative 3x plus 6y minus 7z plus 5. So let's go ahead and pick this apart and just kind of see if we can understand the terminology here. The first thing we're going to look at is the word terms. What are terms? Well, terms are separated by addition and subtraction. So if I kind of cover up, splice this apart, we see that we have four things. These things that we're looking at here that I just underlined are called terms, each one of them. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So how many terms are there altogether? There are 4. Now let's go ahead and list the terms. What are they? Well, we have negative 3x, comma, again we're going to list them so we use commas to separate the terms. We have 6y, comma. Now the next one is 7z, but because we treat subtraction like the sign of the term, it's best if you think of the term as being not just 7z but negative 7z. And then finally 5. So we have 4 terms. They are negative 3x, 6y, negative 7z, and 5. So let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. We know what terms are. They're separated by addition and subtraction. And now let's talk about what's called variable terms. Well, variable terms are just terms that contain variables. We looked at the terms above here. Above this line we have negative 3x. When we talk about negative 3x, we see that that term has a variable with it. So that is called a variable term. So we're going to write negative 3x, comma. What other terms do we have? Well, we have 6y. That also has a variable with it, so that is called a variable term. The next term we looked at is negative 7z. Once again, it has a variable z with it, so it is called a variable term. So negative 7z is also a variable term. When we look at the last term on the list, it's 5. Well, 5 does not have a variable with it, so it is not a variable term. So if 5 does not have a variable with it, what would it be called? Well, it's actually called a constant term. So there's one constant term in the problem, and that's the number 5. So we can see here if we add the variable terms, the negative 3x, 6y, negative 7z, and 5, that's a total of the 4 terms that we have listed above. So collectively, they make up the entire list of terms. Now the next term that we're looking at is the word coefficients. Coefficients are the numeric part of the variable terms. So when we look at the variable terms, the numeric part is the negative 3. For the next variable term, which is 6y, the numeric part is 6. And for the negative 7z term, the numeric part is negative 7. So because they're numbers, people tend to get these confused with the constant term. So understand the difference between coefficients and constant terms. All right, so to make sure we understand this, let's go ahead and take a look at another example. All right, so the next algebraic example, or the next algebraic expression that we're looking at, we have 5abc minus 9e plus g. Remember, addition and subtraction separate terms, so we can see that we have 1, 2, 3 terms. So how many do we have? A total of 3. Now what are the terms? Well, 5abc, comma, again, we could write 9e, but it's best to write 9 or negative 9e. And then finally we have g. Now, with g, there is going to be a number in front that we don't see, and it's the number 1. If somebody were to ask you how many g's do you see here, you could say, well, I see g or 1g, and it's saying the same thing. So if you don't see a number in front of a variable, assume there's a 1 there. So what are the variable terms? Well, we have 3 terms, and all of them have variables with them. So they're all, in this example, variable terms. Now remember, the 1 would be optional, but it's important that you can see it there. All right, what about the constant terms? Well, when we look at the terms or the expression, we don't have any numbers that do not contain variables, and that's what a constant term is. So in this example, there aren't any. So what are the coefficients? Remember, they are the numbers in front of the variable terms. So the coefficients from left to right would be 5, -9, and 1. So when you look at the variable terms, how many terms you have, how many variable terms you have, will tell you how many coefficients you're going to have. So for every variable term, you do have a coefficient. Now they might be repeated. I mean, if I had a 5 instead of the 1 in front of this g, like 5g, we would have the 5 appearing twice. So anyway, the point is, every variable term has a coefficient. So I hope this helps you understand the terminology, the basic terminology of algebraic expressions, including terms, variable terms, constant terms, and coefficients.